Imagine standing on a windy beach along the Atlantic coast of North Africa, roughly 120,000 years ago. There is no freezing ice here, and snow isn't falling from the sky. But the ocean winds carry a bone-chilling dampness. Blowing sand stings your bare skin, and the moment the sun dips below the horizon, the temperature plunges rapidly. In front of you lies the freshly skinned hide of a wild animal. The inside is still slick with fat connective tissue and raw muscle. If you were to wrap that raw skin around your shoulders right now, it would feel crushingly heavy rot within days and suffocate you with a foul stench as it dried into a rigid shell. So you pick up an animal rib that has been patiently ground down into a smooth, rounded tool. You bend over and begin scraping away the fat and inner tissue, repeating the exact rhythmic motions you learned from the elders in your tribe. You aren't trying to make a fashion statement. There are no buttons, no zippers, no tailored sleeves, and no collars. You are doing something vastly more profound. You are transforming a physical piece of another animal into a second skin for yourself. Why did our ancestors start doing this? Was it simply because they couldn't stand the cold? Did they suddenly feel a sense of modesty or shame about their naked bodies? Or did that animal hide give us a superpower, the ability to survive in environments where a bare human body would normally perish? Today, when you open your closet, clothes serve an overwhelming number of functions all at once. They trap body heat, block UV rays, adhere to cultural standards of decency, and silently signal our gender, profession, or economic status. Clothing is the visual broadcast we use to tell the world which tribe we belong to, giving us a boost of confidence and attraction. Because we grew up in a modern civilization where nakedness is often viewed as abnormal or taboo, it is dangerously easy to assume a basic instinct. Early humans must have started wearing clothes out of shame. But in the world of archaeology, shame is a psychological state that never leaves a fossil. The stone scrapers, the parasitic lice living in our seams, and the bone sewing needles excavated from the dirt cannot tell us whether our ancestors felt modest or embarrassed. Those physical traces only answer a much more grounded, survival-driven question. At what point in history did humans start investing intense physical labor into turning hides, furs, and plant fibers into an artificial protective surface? To untangle this mystery, we have to break down the evolution of dress into three distinct technological levels. Level 1 is temporary covering. You grab a raw animal skin, a woven mat of reeds, or a pile of vegetation, and drape it over your shoulders when a cold wind hits, tossing it aside when the sun comes out. This improvised behavior is fleeting and leaves virtually zero archaeological trace. Level 2 is simple clothing. This is when hides are processed with intent, carefully skinned, scraped clean of rotting tissue, softened and tied or pinned around the body. This level marks the point where garments were worn so frequently day after day that the layers of clothing became a permanent ecosystem, a new stable home for specialized parasites like clothing lice to thrive. And level 3 is complex dress. At this stage, garments are custom cut to fit the human form. Pieces of leather are pierced and stitched together with sinew, creating tailored sleeves, trouser legs, and multi-layered systems that hug the contours of the body. Crucially eyed sewing needles appear in the archaeological record vastly later than indirect evidence of hide processing. This proves that our ancestors wore simple clothing for tens or even hundreds of thousands of years, long before they ever invented tailoring. The deepest mystery isn't just pinning down an exact date for the first shirt. The core question is, how did clothing transition from a temporary object draped over the shoulders into a permanent, inseparable extension of the human body? From an evolutionary standpoint, the human body evolved a brilliant biological advantage. We shed our thick body hair and developed the densest array of sweat glands in the animal kingdom. This superpower allowed us to cool down rapidly while persistence hunting under the scorching African sun. But the price tag for hairless skin is brutal. A hairless body is deeply vulnerable. We lose heat at lightning speed when the wind blows, risk fatal hypothermia when caught in freezing rain, burn blisteringly under UV rays, and have zero natural armor against blood-sucking insects or the tearing scratch of thorns, branches, and sharp rocks. Yes, campfires and cave shelters helped our ancestors manipulate their immediate environment. But campfires and caves share a fatal weakness: they stand completely still. If you want to survive, you can't spend your life huddled around a fire. You have to walk out into the elements to forage, hunt, and explore. Clothing was invented to do what a cave could never do. It made shelter portable, moving step by step with your body. By wrapping yourself in a processed animal hide, you didn't just cover your skin, you carried a portable microclimate across the landscape. Because of that moving shelter, the geographical boundaries of humanity were blown wide open. It allowed us to step out of warm, comfortable cradles and conquer windswept plateaus, freezing ice age steppes, and the highest, harshest latitudes on Earth. Fire turned a static location into a livable space. Clothing turned the human body itself into a livable space. So how did science trace these clues to reconstruct that incredible journey? When ancient leather and plant fibers dissolve into the dirt over millennia, researchers had to play biological detectives, uncovering 5 astonishing, indirect clues that shocked the scientific community. Evidence number 1 comes from a totally unexpected source: parasitic lice. In the world of parasites, human head lice can only live and lay their eggs attached to the hairs on our scalp. But they have a close evolutionary sibling, the body louse, better known as the clothing louse. This specialized creature spends its entire life cycle hiding deep inside the seams and folds of our clothes, only crawling onto our skin to feed on blood. This unlocked a priceless molecular clock. Clothing lice could only evolve and branch off after humans started wearing clothes frequently enough to provide a permanent, stable habitat for them to live in. When geneticists sequenced the DNA of both lice species, they discovered that clothing lice diverged from head lice at least 83,000 years ago, with the median genetic models pointing toward roughly 170,000 years in the past. While that estimate carries a wide range, it sends a crystal-clear message. Clothing was not a sudden, overnight invention. For a parasite to completely adapt its biology around our garments, Homo sapiens had to be wearing processed skins regularly as a daily habit far deeper in our past. Evidence number 2 takes us back to contrabandiers' cave in Morocco, with bone tools dating back 120,000 years. Their archaeologists excavated over 60 specialized bone implements. Among them were animal ribs shaped into broad, smooth, spatulate tools. When examined under an electron microscope, the polish and microscopic wear patterns on these bones matched perfectly with the action of scraping, working, and softening the inner side of animal hides. Even more startling, in those exact same soil layers, scientists found the bones of sand foxes, jackals, and wildcats. These bones carried distinct stone tool cut marks where early humans had carefully skinned the animals to preserve their fur intact, rather than typical butchery marks made when slicing meat. This is massive. A freshly skinned pelt is not clothing. It is loaded with blood, moisture, and fat, a recipe for rotting decay. Those Moroccan bone tools prove that over 100,000 years ago, our ancestors invented primitive leather tanning. They weren't just skinning animals for floor mats. They were actively investing labor to transform decaying skin into a durable, flexible material prepared to wrap around the human form. Evidence number 3 reveals that clothing existed millennia before the sewing needle. In the popular imagination, we constantly link the invention of clothes to the eyed sewing needle. But the oldest known eyed bone needles found in Siberia and Europe only date back roughly 40,000 years. That is vastly later than the genetic signal from clothing lice and the hide-scraping tools in Morocco. This proves that the eyed needle didn't invent clothing. It triggered a tailoring revolution. Before the needle existed, humans were already clothed. They wrapped cured hides around their torsos, used flint awls or sharp thorns to punch holes along the edges, and laced animal sinew or plant fibers through to tie them securely in place. The needle didn't create dress. It took crude, bulky wraps and turned them into fitted, engineered garments designed to follow every movement of the limbs. Evidence number 4 proves that child Homo sapiens weren't the only ones dressed for survival. Neanderthals, our evolutionary cousins, lived through brutal freezing ice age cycles across Europe and Eurasia. While their organic fur cloaks long ago dissolved into the earth, modern thermal and ecological modeling has delivered sharp conclusions. By analyzing data from recent hunter-gatherer societies living in similar extreme cold, researchers calculated that during severe winter lows, a Neanderthal had to cover at least 80% of their body surface just to survive. They were undeniably clothed. But unlike the complex multi-layered tailored garments adopted by later Homo sapiens Neanderthals, likely relied on simpler non-tailored fur cloaks draped widely and pinned with bone toggles paired with basic fur wrappings around the limbs. Clothing wasn't our exclusive secret weapon. It was a universal survival solution independently unlocked by multiple human species. And evidence number 5. When clothes covered the entire body, they took on a brand new job acting as a canvas for social identity. When tightly fitted tailored garments emerged around 40,000 years ago, they accidentally concealed one of humanity's most important communication surfaces, our bare skin. Ritual scarification, body paint tattoos, and natural physical proportions were suddenly hidden beneath layers of heavy hide and fur. That sparked a massive cultural shift. Humans started using those new sewing needles to turn clothing itself into a social canvas. They stitched thousands of ivory beads, seashell pendants, and animal teeth directly onto their garments, and dyed leathers with vibrant mineral pigments. Clothing evolved from a purely physical barrier into a rich visual broadcast of social codes. By looking at someone's outfit from a distance, a tribe could instantly read their social status, kinship group, marital status, and crafting skill without a single word being spoken. But here we reach the most fascinating cognitive twist of our investigation. When we ask why humans invented clothes, our brains automatically default to one single dramatic cause: the freezing cold of the Ice Age. We picture a freezing hunter shivering in a snowstorm, desperately throwing a pelt over their shoulders. But remember that critical evidence from Contrabandier's cave in Morocco that was a mild, temperate Mediterranean coastal region, nowhere near freezing Ice Age glaciers. If they weren't fighting off frostbite, what drove them to spend hours scraping and curing hides 120,000 years ago? The truth is, a revolutionary technology doesn't have to be born from one single catastrophic disaster. Sometimes an invention survives because it solves 10 small, irritating daily problems all at once. A cured hide draped over the shoulders in a temperate climate wasn't just for nighttime warmth when the desert air cooled down. During the blazing heat of the day, that same hide acted as a shield against intense solar radiation, protecting bare skin from blistering sunburns. When trekking through dense brush or thorny ravines, the leather served as armor against mosquitoes biting flies and disease-carrying insects. It cushioned kneeling knees from sharp rocks during foraging, kept bodies cleaner when butchering bloody game, and conveniently, the folds of a draped hide created primitive carrying bags, freeing up both hands to transport tools, firewood, and food. Clothing didn't have to start in a snowstorm. It thrived because a single animal pelt was humanity's first Swiss Army knife, a multi-tool solving 10 different survival challenges at the exact same time. If you look at the mechanics of clothing through an ecological lens, it operates as an extraordinary 5-step environmental regulation machine. Step 1 is air trapping. Thick fur or woven fibers trap a static layer of dead air directly against your skin. This still air acts as a premier thermal insulator, preventing your precious body heat from radiating out into the cold atmosphere. Step 2 is wind blocking. Wind is a silent, ruthless thief of body heat. As it blows, It continuously strips away the warm layer of air hovering over your skin, replacing it with cold air. An animal hide acts as an impenetrable physical wall, slamming the brakes on wind chill and preserving your thermal boundary intact. Step 3 is external damage absorption. You let the hide take the beating instead of your own flesh absorbing UV radiation, insect bites, thorny scratches, dirt, and toxic bacteria. The pelt might rip, fray, and wear out over time, but the human skin beneath remains untouched. Step 4 is flexible control. This is where clothing totally outperforms biological fur. Survival is a game of constant adjustment. When running down prey in the afternoon heat, you can strip off a layer to let sweat evaporate and cool you down. When the freezing night descends, you can wrap 2 extra layers around your core. When a garment tears, you can patch it. When it wears thin, you can make a new one, and you can even hand your warm cloak down to your child. And step 5, the core engine of human dominance, is the speed of adaptation. If the global climate suddenly plunges into an ice age, other animals have to wait for natural selection to do its slow, brutal work. They lose generations of lives waiting for random DNA mutations to evolve a thicker coat of fur. Humans don't wait for genetics. A hunter can learn a leather tanning technique within their own short lifetime fashion a warm winter coat in a matter of days and immediately teach that life-saving knowledge to their children. Humanity is the only species on Earth that refused to surrender to the body nature gave us. We designed a second body, a removable, upgradable cultural skin that evolves at the speed of thought, leaving biological evolution in the dust. Looking even deeper, that cloak didn't just alter our physical survival. It fundamentally changed our psychological concept of self. We tend to think of clothes as dead material sitting outside of us, but in daily life, our brains integrate our garments directly into our motor system and body schema. When you put on a heavy winter coat, your brain automatically recalculates your physical dimensions. You know whether you can squeeze through a narrow doorway without looking. When you lace up sturdy hiking boots, your stride becomes more confident and aggressive over jagged rocks because your brain incorporates the sole as an extension of your foot. When you wear a uniform or protective gear, you walk with a completely different posture because you know the world is reading your role and authority through that fabric. Clothing holds a tremendous superpower. It simultaneously alters 2 realities. It changes what your body can physically do in the environment, and it edits the social meaning of your body in the eyes of everyone around you. When our ancestors draped that first hide over their shoulders over 100,000 years ago, they weren't just covering bare skin. They picked up a pen and began editing the boundary between the self and the outside world. Today, those prehistoric animal pelts have faded into the past, replaced by extraordinary high-tech materials, digitally engineered synthetic weaves, waterproof Gore-Tex membranes, phase-change thermal fibers, sterile surgical gowns, and pressurized spacesuits that allow humans to walk through the absolute vacuum of deep space. Yet strip away those modern technological layers, and you will see a brilliant truth. The core survival function of the clothes on your back hasn't changed one bit since the dawn of humanity. Clothing remains a miracle that transforms a hostile, lethal environment into a friendly microclimate that nurtures the human body. At the same time, that social layer of meaning is broadcasting louder than ever. A white lab coat projects scientific authority. A matching uniform bonds strangers into a cohesive team. A worn, faded leather jacket preserves decades of cherished memories passed down from a parent. Modern fashion never erased our survival instincts. It simply stacked a rich layer of social identity directly on top of our physical armor. The modern outfit will always be a dual structure, a physical shield protecting your biology from nature, and a social broadcast telling humanity exactly who you are. Our ancestors likely didn't start wearing clothes out of sudden modesty or to hide their bodies in shame. They began with a vastly more bold, practical decision to carry a safe, comfortable piece of climate with them as they walked into the unknown. And from that rough, scraped animal skin, Humanity patiently cut, stitched, dyed, and tailored a miraculous second skin, turning a simple survival tool, designed to brave the elements, into a brilliant canvas where we proudly write the story of who we are.